All right, now we're in Brantford with Sarah Eder, and she's going to show us around one of her current buy and hold BRRRR properties here in Brantford, Ontario.
Houses like this are typically like in the $250 to $260 range. We negotiated it for $210,000. It was a private deal with some people that were going through a tough time, which is why we were able to negotiate like a really good deal on it. It is behind this magic wall. So he created this wall on wheels.
I've never seen that before.
Me neither. It's like, I don't want to be wasting my time in Home Depot, picking out tiles, picking all that stuff. I'm over that now. It was fun in the beginning, not on my like 50th property. So for me now, we just kind of go with like the trend right now.
You mentioned something that I'm sure some of the more astute listeners heard, 100% loan to value with your private financing. One, is that even possible? And two, if so, how does that work? In today's video, we're back in Brantford with Sarah talking about BRRRRs. No, not that Sarah, actually a different Sarah. We're talking Sarah Eder, not Sarah Larby. And in today's video, we dive deep into a single family home that Sarah Eder's in the process of BRRRRing. She breaks down for us exactly how she manages her contractors, how she operates her projects, and a lot more in today's video. All right, now we're in Brantford with Sarah Eder, and she's going to show us around one of her current buy and hold BRRRR properties here in Brantford, Ontario. I'm really excited to check it out. Thank you, Sarah, for taking the time to meet up.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys, for coming to tour my nice little single family BRRRR. So this project we actually acquired in May. A little bit of a long story because it is a private deal, so we had some issues with the sellers. We're just getting underway with renovations now. We should be done in a few weeks. So we're going to show you guys kind of halfway through the renovation process.
Awesome. Let's check it out.
Let's come inside. All right. So this is kind of like your standard Brantford property. It's just like a big two-story brick Victorian. It was actually built, I think, in 1920. So it needed a good amount of work, a little bit more, unfortunately, than we were hoping for. We were budgeting about $25,000 to $30,000. Of course, when you get into these old houses, you start to experience some real stuff. So I was telling you guys about a story about the electrical in this wall. We had some live wiring that was happening. Ended up having to call an electrician and spend a lot more than we were hoping for. We were gonna keep some of the existing cabinets in the kitchen, just decide to gut everything and do all new tile. We think it's definitely gonna pay off in the long run, but we'll show you guys around and kind of the process where we're at right now. So we're about 2 to 3 weeks away from being completed. So you can see most of like the electrical is behind the walls. You can't tell, but it's already been updated. All of this used to be plaster. So there's some old like brick walls in behind here. This kitchen was very, very much a mess. Traditional like popcorn ceilings. We had just crazy like elevation stuff going on. There was plywood in behind the walls. So although we didn't want to spend this extra money, we actually ended up just gutting this entire space so it could just be a nice clean slate. I mean, most families like to spend their time in the kitchen. So we wanted to make sure this is like a bright, fresh space. So we're going to be replacing these doors, and kitchen cabinets and everything are going to be installed in a couple of weeks. Brand new custom kitchen. We have all new appliances, and it should be a really nice space. You guys can probably see out in the backyard. Looks like a very nice place for a family to spend time. We put actually a brand new fence surrounding the entire property. Again, that was an extra expenditure we were really not counting on, but we found out when we were going around the perimeter that this fence was actually like starting to cave in this way. So we decided that because this is going to be targeted towards families, we wanted to have a gate on the side and a full enclosed fenced area. We also put a new roof and some paint on that nice little shed out there. And this was actually all dirt. It was a really gross backyard. There was a lot of like detritus and like glass pieces. Like it was not a safe place for a family. So we decided to sod it and just make it more appealing for our renters when they come in, essentially. So, all right, we can go to the basement if you guys do want to do the basement. All right. It's actually kind of a neat space. We're pretty lucky that it is like a full-sized basement. And while a lot of people might actually not do anything with the basement. We wanted to provide extra value for our future tenants. So this is actually something kind of funny that I want to show you guys. So this is the previous owner. You're probably wondering, where's all the electrical equipment and where's like the hot water tanks and everything? It is behind.
All right, now it's the best time of the video. We're going to be diving deep into the numbers. So Sarah's broken it all down for us. So walk us through, Sarah. What exactly did this look like?
So this is actually a private deal, as you can see. So we got it with private financing. So we negotiated it for $210,000. It was a private deal with some people that were going through a tough time, which is why we were able to negotiate like a really good deal on it. Houses like this are typically like in the 250 to 260 range. So we really got it significantly under.
Yeah, you were saying it was kind of a hoarder house. There was a lot of stuff going on here. So
Absolutely.
A lot of other investors probably would have just looked past it and not seen the potential beneath all the stuff.
Exactly, and apparently a couple of other investors had come through it and they were a little afraid because it's the type of deal I don't get to do a home inspection or really dig into it. We kind of took it on face value. So.
Yeah, and so why is this private financing important?
So for us, we actually did attempt to go to the bank for a conventional mortgage. They saw the condition of the house and they wouldn't lend for the same reason that most investors overlooked it. They don't know what's underneath all that junk. So they actually gave us options. We had a good broker, so she was still able to obtain private financing for us at good rates, with the option to then refinance at the end into a conventional product. So
Gotcha. So a lot of the investors that would be looking at this sort of property, if they're only going through a traditional bank, essentially like they're not part of the real buyer pool for this type of property. So a lot less competition kind of when dealing with properties that a bank won't finance.
yeah, absolutely. It takes a little more like risk. You know, we're 100% loan to value financing and everything. So definitely, you know, a little more of an advanced strategy. So.
Gotcha. And then so you broke down for us the closing costs, which is great because sometimes on HGTV they forget those.
Yeah.
So do you mind, just for people that are maybe new to real estate investing, what kind of expenses are included in your closing costs?
Yeah, so that's really important. I mean, especially in flips, people always forget about the holding costs and the closing costs. So that basically factored in, we did have to pay some lender fees for that private financing. So that's one thing. It's like with not going with a bank, you're paying some broker and lender fees. So it's a little more expensive. That also included lawyers and the land transfer tax.
Gotcha. And then so renovation budget, we're looking at approximately $50,000.
Yeah.
So do you mind breaking down for us just what's included in that $50,000?
Yeah, absolutely. As you guys can tell, we're still kind of under renovation, which is why that's a 50. Initially, it was supposed to actually be more of like a $30,000 budget, but as I was telling them earlier, we kind of ran into some hiccups, which you always will with houses like this. So in that $50,000 is paint, flooring, a totally brand new kitchen. It's completely gutted. We did some waterproofing in the basement as well as an epoxy seal on the concrete. We wanted to make it like a usable space. This is going to be a single family like home for somebody. Also a bit of like drywall, plaster work. We did a little bit of like tiling and refurbishment to the bathrooms upstairs and downstairs, as well as a bit of like paint and a couple windows that needed to be replaced. And the sod in the backyard.
Right. And then so what's your exact process for estimating renovations? How do you go about that? Do you have like a checklist, or are you walking through with your contractor? Is it experience?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I'm fairly knowledgeable. I can usually eyeball pretty good what things are going to cost, but I want to be as accurate as possible. So I tend to bring my contractor with me through like for a walkthrough, and then he's itemizing everything, and then I get a pretty good ballpark.
Gotcha. And then so we've got holding costs of $9,000.
Yes. So that's another thing, is like with private financing, I mean, my holding costs are way higher than your typical hold, and that's because of the interest costs on the mortgage essentially. So in those holding costs are the interest payments for the mortgage, our taxes, utilities, water, and all that fun stuff. It did take a little longer than we were hoping because it's been a little bit of a longer hold. So it's about like 3 to 4 months worth of holding costs.
Gotcha. So all in, we're looking $275, and then so target refinance refinance, 320?
320, yeah. This neighborhood is really cool because it's gentrifying. So when we first purchased this property in May, we were thinking that our target refinance was going to be about 285. So we were trying to really like number crunch and keep our costs as low as possible. And then the market kind of experienced a bit of a surge in the late summer, and we actually, by the time we closed, even gained like more equity than we'd anticipated when we first bought the property in May. So now that that's happening, we're looking at easily 320. It could even be slightly higher.
And so you had mentioned earlier that you were kind of debating whether this should be a flip or a buy and hold with a BRRRR. So how do you make that decision?
For me, it comes down to effort and margins. So, I mean, I like to see a minimum of like $50,000 on a flip, unless it's going to be a really fast 30-day in and out. I make 20 to 30,000 on that flip. I'll take the smaller margin on it. But for me, once we kind of dug into this house a little bit, we thought, okay, there's a little more work here than your typical flip. Like if I'm gonna put $50,000 of reno into a flip, I wanna see at least that plus a percentage return back to me. I knew it wasn't gonna happen with this particular property, at least when we first purchased it. And this is the type of neighborhood where it's probably the last neighborhood to gentrify within Brantford, and it was really hard. There weren't a lot of good finished comps. So for us, we were a little nervous about going the full flip route, but we might still maybe in a year or two.
Okay. And then so when you refinance, you'll be refinancing with like a traditional A lender, a bank?
Correct, yes.
And that'll be 80% loan to value?
Loan to value, yeah.
So then essentially once you're done, about $19,000, $20,000 all into the deal, and you're left with any cash flow?
There's a good amount of cash flow for this actually. For a lot of people that don't know about Brantford, even in this neighborhood, a single family home like this with a full yard, 3 beds, 2 baths goes for almost $2,000 a month plus utilities. So even at 320, we're doing some decent cash flow. So I think it's about $495 a month in cash flow. And voila.
There we go.
Pretty good.
So yeah, that's great cash flow, thinking about like $500 a month for a property like this. The payback or your cash on cash returns pretty strong, all things considered. And then so you broke down for us the annual ROI as well?
Did. So factoring in the fact that we're only leaving like less than 20,000 in the property with some pretty strong cash flow in the single family and the appreciation that we're obviously experiencing in this gentrifying neighborhood, we're looking at about 32% ROI annually. So that's why we actually ended up deciding to hold it, because the numbers here are so strong. We think that in a couple years of holding, we're gonna do much better for our dollar than just flipping it right away.
Gotcha. And so is this like a typical example of what can be done in Brantford? Is this an exceptional deal? What's your opinion?
I would say it's on the road of exceptional. When I bought this, it was an okay deal, and now with the way the prices have surged, this is turning more into an exceptional project. Finding anything around $200,000 in Brantford is very difficult now, especially in this shape. It needed work, but I have seen absolute like falling down shacks for more. So yeah, this one's a pretty decent deal, but it is pretty typical of a single family home in Brantford.
Awesome.
Yeah, this magic wall. So he created this wall on wheels.
I've never seen that before.
Me neither. So in behind we have all like the furnace and hot water tanks and everything, but this was pretty entertaining when we first bought the house. We thought this was pretty funny. Actually, it's all brand new too, which is really nice. It's an expenditure we didn't have to worry about. But yeah, this is definitely kind of one of those like handmade things that it's kind of exciting. So I don't know if we're gonna keep this, but I mean, I don't know. It works. Just paint and put like a handle on it. So I'll see if I can find a little lights down here. Yeah. So this space, we actually came down and unfortunately discovered a little bit of water damage. So rather than just leave it, we decided to parge the entire like inside, waterproof it, and insulate it. Again, we didn't really have to go that extra mile, but we want to make this house like as functional as possible for a family that lives here. So we actually like sealed the floors, painted it. You can tell it's almost like a little more like soundproof in here now too. So, you know, it's just like a nice space for a family to come. They can store things down here. They could even create like a little rec room essentially. And we always know that like for the future value of the home that, you know, we want to increase as much as possible without going too much over budget. So this isn't the largest layout of like a single family home, being that it is kind of like an old Victorian. Open concept really wasn't their thing. So we really tried to make use of the space as best as we could. So hypothetically, this is like a 2-bedroom house. So what we did is this room over here actually used to be like an open foyer type of like area. So we actually closed it in. So now that actually serves as like a master bed. So if there was like an elderly couple that wanted to live here, there's actually a full piece bath on the main level as well. So I think that's probably why they designed it this way. So, you know, we kind of cater to like a lot of different potential like renters that would want to come in here. And obviously this is the living space. We've done all new flooring, new drywall, paint. So we're coming along pretty well on this main level. These are all of our nice new appliances. And you can see, yeah, this is gonna actually make like a pretty nice like open concept master bedroom. We replaced some of these windows because they were older, but nice high ceilings, good open space. Again, new flooring and paint in here. We didn't have to do a lot. So yeah, this is just one of those kind of creative ways of maximizing the space that you have when, you know, 2-bedroom houses are really hard to sell. So essentially this way we're kind of providing a bit more value for the tenants. Parents can live here or even upstairs, and you could even have like a nursery, whatever you want essentially. So and then the main piece bath on the main level. It's kind of interesting. We haven't seen this layout too often, but there's actually a full 5-piece bath down here, with the 2-piece being on the upper level, which is really weird. But again, I think there was maybe like an elderly couple living here beforehand. So it's actually like a huge bathroom, and we're not going to do too much to it. You can see that like there's a nice little jacuzzi tub. We're gonna be replacing the shower, and it's a really nice functional space essentially for someone, especially if there is like an elderly, you know, couple that lives here. There's a lot of extra like storage space around. So yeah, this one's almost coming along. We store a lot of stuff in here because we're not doing a ton of construction in this particular room. So. And the pedestal sink will be going. They're not super functional, so yeah. So I can show you guys the proper upstairs.
Awesome.
All right. So you can see this is actually originally like what the walls look like. It was like this old like plaster. Now there was a lot of debate amongst like our construction crew whether we were going to tear down all of this, but we just knew that it was going to really ramp up the budget. So we replaced the drywall that really needed to get done, and then for this we actually just plastered and painted over it. So we think it's like kind of a decent solution. It's not in bad shape, and that way we kind of saved a little bit of money there. Same with replacing these steps. We decided not to actually go ahead and do the full like laminate, only because stairs are really expensive, and if anyone's done like laminate or hardwood on stairs, installation is super costly. So what we're going to do is actually just sand these down, restain them, and then that'll be it. I mean, it is a rental, so you don't want to go too crazy with the budget on that end of things. So all right, let's go upstairs. Watch your head on this little landing thing.
Sarah, when it comes to projects like this, do you have a standard, you know, flooring type, standard color palette? How do you approach your flips and your buy and hold investments?
It's a good question. I think probably a lot of investors do this, and yes, we do have kind of like a set structure that we follow just to make life simple.
Yeah.
I have it now, so like a lot of my contractors are running my flips with me remotely. So if I'm not there to tell them, you know, colors, like I don't want to be wasting my time in Home Depot picking out tiles, picking all that stuff. I'm over that now. It was fun in the beginning, not on my like 50th property. So for me now, we just kind of go with like the trend right now, which is I have this like nice color that I love. I think it's from BRRRR. It's like morning mist gray, just a nice pale gray on the walls, white trim. We just do a plain small white subway tile for a backsplash. I like quartz countertops actually. I don't put like laminate or engineered in a lot of my places. I just go for like a nice clean like quartz, like a white or something. We have a really good supplier outside of Stony Creek actually. that gives us really good rates on our kitchens.
That can make a big difference.
Yeah, they do really good kind of like wholesale rates on their kitchen products. And I'm just like an IKEA kitchen type of person, or just like the plain white, you know, nice
basic,
and
modern,
simple. Yeah, and we also have a really good flooring place out of Hamilton as well. We just go for like either like a brown or gray kind of like distressed vinyl. So in all of my projects, I think I've put laminate in only a handful of them, but even though vinyl is slightly more expensive, it holds up so much better on our rentals. And for the flips even, I find it looks nice, and some people like the idea that their kids can drop objects or, you know, juice or something on the ground and it's not going to ruin their laminate. So yeah,
vinyl's just so much more resilient, right, than laminate flooring. So I've been noticing that more and more often. A lot of investors that even, you know, 5-10 years ago were using laminate now are transitioning just because vinyl's becoming so much more competitive.
Yeah, it used to be so expensive, nobody wanted to buy it, and now they have some really high-end vinyl products that they have that like sheen on them that look just like high-end laminate. So yeah, we also like kind of like preserving the character of the house too. I mean, clearly there's a lot of character in this house, and you know, maintaining some of the original woodwork, I usually try to keep some of the existing house in. So this is one of the upstairs bedrooms. For an older house, it's actually a really good size. So you can see there's already like a pretty nice deep like built-in closet, so we didn't have to add closets. 2 really nice big windows. They were already replaced, so we didn't have to worry about that. And this flooring was actually in here too. So we're not really doing much with these upstairs bedrooms at all. We put in some new doors. Gonna kind of clean up the trim work and things like that just as a cosmetic upgrade, but for the most part these rooms upstairs were actually really good. It was the main level that needed the most amount of work. Definitely like odd shaped ceilings. That's pretty typical in houses like this. So this other bedroom, fairly similar, slightly smaller but still nice. All the rooms in this house have really high ceilings, which is really nice. Have a nice little closet in the back here, and again, nice big windows, which again, I think we're placing that window because it won't open. So yeah, otherwise, one of the most interesting parts is the bathroom upstairs. It's really bizarre the way they set it up. We're not really sure 100% what's underneath this, so we're just not going to really remove it. You can see we kept some of their like original decor, which is pretty exciting. This like fake brick wallpaper, and they have this like random little built-in like cabinet like in the corner here. As much as it's not aesthetically the most pleasing thing in the world, we're actually going to keep it, mostly because we're pretty sure that under here there's stuff that we don't want to get into when we start to move it. It's probably like a piece of the stack and like plumbing, so rather than get into a whole bunch of stuff, again, it's a rental, we want to do as much renovations as necessary to increase the value, but we don't ever want to overspend in a rental like this. So sure, you know, is this built-in cabinet really pretty? No, but it does serve a function and a purpose, especially for like a powder room. So we're just going to replace the vanity, kind of replace some of this chipped up tile over here, and I'll probably just paint this like a nice white. And I don't know, the tenants might actually enjoy having a bit of built-in storage space in the long run. So yeah, so really all that's left is to do the kitchen installation, some trim and finishing work around most of the house, but for the most part we are probably 2 weeks away from completion.
Earlier in the video, Sarah, you mentioned something that I'm sure some of the more astute listeners heard: 100% loan to value with your private financing.
Yeah.
1, is that even possible? And 2, if so, how does that work?
It is definitely possible. I've done it on more properties than you would imagine. Really, the only secret I can say is negotiate with your broker. So oftentimes I either do it one of two ways. It's either through my mortgage broker, or it's just like individuals that are loaning me money. This particular one was actually even through a broker. But it's just a broker I have a really good rapport with. She kind of went off the books a little bit to find me like an individual that was willing to kind of not go through the normal channels, essentially. And because of like our good credit and the other projects that we've done and the experience that we have, they were willing to go 100% loan to value. Mostly I'm thinking too because it was only like a $210,000 property. You know, the risk is a little less for a lot of lenders, but even my other private lenders that I find on my own, they'll often go 100% loan to value if I'm, have a bit of skin in the game, if I'm providing like the renovation funds, for example. But don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah.
My broker might come to me and say, I'll only give you 65% loan to value. I'm like, no, not a chance. Like, I'm not putting down that much. How about this and this and this? And sometimes we make concessions on interest rates. I probably pay higher interest rates. Like, I pay 10%. And people are like, oh, that's so high. But that's the cost of
doing business.
Money. Yeah. And I mean, at 100% loan to value, that means nothing out of my pocket and just some interest fees.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to pay it just for the ease of having my entire property.
Okay, so 10% interest, and then is there like an origination fee or a setup fee that you're also paying?
It all depends on the lender. They can sometimes go as high as like 3% lending fees. Most of mine are about a 1% lender fee. If it's a broker, usually a 1% broker fee. And then we always pay for the lawyer fees for the setup of the actual documentation.
And again, that's just a matter of like building it into your spreadsheets, making sure your numbers work, and if the numbers work, why wouldn't you say yes to that opportunity?
Exactly. As we talked about before with like my sheet, I mean, I factor all of that into like holding costs, all of those extra costs of business that I'm going to incur before I take on a project. So.
Yeah. Okay. So lesson number 1, guys, 100% loan to value is possible, but at the same time, it's very relationship oriented. So the first time you walk in off the street, you're probably not going to get that 100% loan to value, especially if you don't have a history and a track record to show that mortgage broker that, hey, you actually know what you're doing, you're a sophisticated business person, that, you're strategic investors. So.
Exactly.
Thanks again to Sarah Eder for taking the time to sit down and break down the numbers behind her current BRRRR project in Brantford, Ontario. I'm actually getting really excited, guys, by the market in Brantford, Ontario. It kind of feels like London 2.0. So don't be surprised if you see me starting to invest in Brantford in the near future.